In 1994, a 7-year-old pageant winner vanished after her big win. 3 years later, her mother found a moldy cereal bowl in the attic, and what it revealed shattered everything they thought they knew. She trusted her uncle. He told her her parents were dead. For 3 years, she lived beneath their feet until a forgotten fish tank exposed the truth. A child beauty pageant winner from Colorado vanished in 1994, mere hours after her triumphant performance, transforming what should have been a joyful celebration into an unending nightmare. 3 years later, in 1997, her mother stumbled upon a moldy cereal bowl in the attic. What this seemingly simple discovery revealed about her daughter's fate was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Afternoon sun filtered through the lace curtains of the Carlisle home in Castle Rock, Colorado, casting long shadows. Across the dining room table where 5 people sat in intense discussion. It was 1997, and the weight of 3 years bore heavily on everyone present. Emma Carlisle unconsciously twisted her ring as she listened to the private investigators. LAT, Eastie update. Her husband, David, rested a supportive hand on her shoulder. The investigator, a weathered man in his 50s named Frank Morrison, spread out several documents and photographs across the mahogany table. "I've been following up on leads from the Denver area," he said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. There was a reported sighting at a mall, but the security footage was too grainy to confirm. Ryan Carlisle, David's younger brother, leaned forward from his spot at the corner of the table. His sandy brown hair fell into his eyes as he studied the blurry photograph. "That could be anyone," he said quietly. "The height seems wrong." Lucille Carlisle, the family matriarch, sat with her hands folded in her lap, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. At 72, she had aged considerably since her granddaughter's disappearance. "We can't give up hope," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. "Rhea is out there somewhere." Emma's eyes drifted to the framed photograph on the sideboard. Rhea in her blue pageant dress, a princess sash draped across her shoulder, her blonde curls perfectly styled, her radiant smile captivating the judges. The photo had been taken just hours before she vanished at the child beauty pageant in 1994. "Have you checked with the other families from the pageant circuit again?" David asked, his voice steady despite the pain Emma knew he carried. Maybe someone remembered something new. Morrison nodded. "I've been in contact with several families. Most have moved on, stopped competing. The Williamson family mentioned they thought they saw someone matching Rhea's description at a competition in Phoenix last year, but..." He trailed off, shaking his head. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. They'd been at this for 2 hours, rehashing the same ground, searching for something, anything they might have missed. Morrison began explaining the interstate coordination efforts when the phone rang, its shrill tone slicing through the conversation. Emma started, then rose quickly. "I'll get it," she said, grateful for a momentary escape from the crushing weight of another meeting with no real progress. She picked up the receiver of the wall-mounted phone in the kitchen. "Carlisle residence. Mrs. Carlisle. This is Detective Brennan from the Castle Rock Police Department." Emma's grip tightened on the handset. "Yes, Detective. I apologize for calling during your meeting with the private investigator. We know he's there today, but we've had a handwriting expert reviewing some old evidence, and they'd like to compare some samples. Would it be possible for you to bring some of Rhea's school materials or textbooks? We need to cross-check her handwriting samples against some new evidence that's come to light." "New evidence?" Emma's voice rose slightly, causing the conversation in the dining room to pause. "I can't go into details over the phone, but we'd appreciate it if you could bring whatever schoolwork you have from Rhea. Notebooks, workbooks, anything with substantial handwriting samples." "Of course, I'll bring them over right away," Emma said, already mentally cataloging where they'd stored Rhea's belongings. After hanging up, she returned to the dining room, where 4 pairs of eyes watched her expectantly. "That was Detective Brennan," she explained. "They want me to bring some of Ria's school materials to cross-check handwriting samples. They mentioned new evidence." Morrison's eyebrows rose. "Interesting. They didn't mention anything to me about new evidence. Where are her school things?" Emma asked David. "We packed everything up and—" She paused, trying to remember. They'd been so distraught in those early months. Packing Ria's belongings had been a blur of tears and pain. David rubbed his forehead, thinking, "The school materials. I handled that category when we were packing. There. At Ryan's house." He looked at his brother. Ryan nodded, already reaching into his pocket. "I can go get them." "No," Emma interrupted, perhaps more sharply than intended. "I mean, I'll do it. The police might ask me to grab something else, and I don't want to trouble you." She gestured to the table, still covered with documents. "You should all continue with Mr. Morrison. I know where to look." Ryan pulled out his key ring, working 2 keys free. "The brass one is for the front door. This silver one is for the basement." He showed her each key carefully. "Some of Ria's stuff is in the basement, some in the attic. We had to split it up because there was just so much and space is limited. The school materials are definitely in the basement," David added, his memory clearing. "I specifically remember putting that box under the stairs with the others." "Under the stairs, basement." "Got it," Emma said, pocketing the keys. Morrison spoke up. "Mrs. Carlyle, would you like someone to accompany you?" "I'm fine," Emma assured him. "You should all continue here." "This is important." David stood partially. "Em, are you sure?" "I can come with you." She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, pressing him back into his seat. "Stay, finish the meeting. Ryan's house is just a 10-minute walk. I'll be back soon." After exchanging a few more words and reassurances, Emma excused herself and stepped out into the late afternoon air. The June weather was mild, with a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the oak trees lining the street. Ryan's house was indeed close, just in a different cluster of the same sprawling neighborhood, where the houses were slightly older, but well-maintained. As she walked, Emma's mind wandered to all the times Ria had made the same journey, running ahead of them to Uncle Ryan's house, excited to play in his attic playroom or help him with his tropical fish. Ryan had always been the fun uncle, the one who let Ria stay up a little later, eat an extra cookie, watch cartoons he'd recorded on his VCR. The brass key turned smoothly in the lock of Ryan's front door. The house was quiet, tidy as always. Ryan had inherited their mother's fastidious nature, everything in its place. Emma made her way directly to the basement door, flicking on the light switch at the top of the stairs. The wooden steps creaked under her feet as she descended. The basement was finished but utilitarian, with concrete walls painted a neutral beige and industrial carpeting. She turned left at the bottom of the stairs, immediately spotting the stack of boxes beneath the sloped underside of the staircase. The first thing that caught her eye made her breath catch in her throat. There, sitting on top of an open box, was Ria's Hello Kitty cereal bowl, a pink plastic bowl with Hello Kitty's face smiling up at her. Emma's vision blurred with sudden tears as memories flooded back. Ria at the breakfast table, insisting on using this specific bowl, refusing to eat if it wasn't available. They had to buy an identical one just to avoid meltdowns on laundry day. Emma picked up the bowl with trembling hands, cradling it like the precious relic it was. How many mornings had she filled this bowl with Cheerios or Lucky Charms, watching Ria carefully pick out all the marshmallows first? The weight of grief pressed down on her, and she had to take several deep breaths to compose herself. She needed to get out of here quickly before the memories overwhelmed her completely. Setting the bowl gently aside, she moved the open box and began shifting the others, looking for the one David had described. Several boxes back, pushed deep under the slope of the stairs, She found one clearly marked in David's neat handwriting: school and stationery. The box was still sealed with packing tape, undisturbed for 3 years. Emma used the sharp edge of the house key to slice through the tape, the sound harsh in the quiet basement. Inside, carefully packed, were Ria's school supplies: pencil cases, rulers, erasers still in their packaging, and there, what she was looking for: notebooks and textbooks from 4th grade, Ria's most recent completed school year. Emma lifted out a composition notebook, its cover decorated with Ria's careful doodles of flowers and butterflies. She opened it, seeing page after page of her daughter's handwriting: spelling tests, journal entries, math problems worked out in pencil. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks as she traced a finger over the words "my family" at the top of one page, followed by a paragraph about how much Ria loved her parents, Uncle Ryan, and Grandma Lucille. She quickly gathered several notebooks and textbooks, anything that would provide the handwriting samples the police needed. With her arms full of Ria's things, Emma climbed the stairs quickly, eager to escape the emotional minefield of the basement. She made sure to turn off the light and close the door firmly behind her before heading to the front door. Emma reached her house just as Frank Morrison was stepping out the front door, his worn leather briefcase in hand. She quickened her pace, jogging the last few steps to catch him. "Mr. Morrison, I'm sorry about the interruption," she said, slightly breathless from the emotion and the quick walk. The investigator waved off her apology with a weathered hand. "No problem at all, Mrs. Carleo. Police business takes priority. I hope it's something useful." His eyes held that mixture of professional caution and genuine hope she'd seen so many times over the past 3 years. After watching him drive away in his dark sedan, Emma went back inside, where David, Ryan, and Lucille were still gathered. In the dining room, the documents and photographs had been neatly stacked, the meeting officially over. "I got everything," Emma announced, setting Ria's school materials on the cleared table. David picked up one of the notebooks, his fingers gentle on the cover. "4th grade," he murmured. She was so proud of her cursive writing that year. "Did Morrison have any other suggestions before he left?" Emma asked. "Just to keep following up on the Pageant circuit connections," Ryan said, pushing back his chair and stretching. "Same as always." Lucille stood, ever the caretaker. Despite her age, well, there's no sense dwelling on it now. "Emma, dear, you and David need to get to the police station. I'll clean up here. The kitchen's still a mess from lunch." They had prepared quite a spread for Morrison's visit, hoping a good meal might somehow lead to better news. "Mom, you don't have to," David began, but Lucille was already collecting empty coffee cups with practiced efficiency. Ryan stood. "As well, I'll help Mom clean up and drive her home after. You two focus on the police." Emma felt a wave of gratitude for her brother-in-law's constant support. "Thank you, Ryan, both of you." 10 minutes later, Emma and David were in their 1993 Ford Taurus, heading toward the Castle Rock police station. David drove while Emma held Ria's school materials in her lap, her fingers occasionally tracing over the notebook covers. The police station was a squat brick building on the edge of downtown, its parking lot half full, even at this hour. As they pulled in, Emma spotted Detective Brennan in the corridor, visible through the glass doors, clearly heading somewhere in a hurry. They rushed inside, Emma clutching the school materials. Brennan saw them and checked his watch with visible frustration. "Mrs. Carlyle, you're late," he said, not unkindly, but with clear impatience. "I have another meeting with the DI's office in 10 minutes. "I'm so sorry," Emma said quickly. "I had to get my daughter's things from my brother-in-law's basement and find the right box, but I have everything here. Notebooks, textbooks, graded assignments." Brennan's expression softened slightly when he saw the stack of materials in her arms. Good, come on. Let's use my office quickly." They followed him down a familiar hallway. 3 years of visits had made Emma intimately acquainted with the Castle Rock police station. Brennan's office was small and cluttered, case files stacked on every surface, a computer humming on his desk. Emma set the materials on the only clear spot on his desk and apologized again for the delay. Brennan waved it off as he flipped through the notebooks, examining the handwriting. "Listen," he said, looking up at them with his sharp blue eyes. "I need to make a suggestion, and I know it might be difficult to hear." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "For practicality's sake, it would be better to have all of Ria's belongings back at your home." Emma and David exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" David asked. "What if we need something quickly in the middle of the night? What if a lead comes in and we need to compare clothing or toys or other personal items?" Brennan leaned back in his chair, which squeaked protestingly. "This isn't the first time we've had delays because her things are stored elsewhere." David's jaw tightened slightly. "We moved everything to my brother's house because we couldn't. It was too hard having her things around every day, being reminded every minute that she's gone." Brennan's expression turned sympathetic. "I understand, I really do. I'm not trying to be insensitive. It's just a suggestion from a practical standpoint. We've had several instances now where it's taken extra time to retrieve something." Emma shifted uncomfortably. She hadn't thought she'd taken that long today, though she supposed moving boxes around and dealing with the emotional weight of it had added time. The comment sparked a sudden memory that made her frown. All of Ria's boxes in the basement had been sealed with tape. She remembered the sound of cutting through it. But that one box, the one with the Hello Kitty bowl sitting on top, had been open. The bowl had been placed there almost haphazardly, as if someone had taken it out and put it back carelessly. She made a mental note to ask David about it later. Perhaps he'd opened that box after they'd sealed it, remembering something else that needed to go inside. It wouldn't be unlike him to forget to mention such a detail in the fog of grief they'd been living in. "We'll think about it," David was saying to Brennan. "Maybe it is time." Brennan glanced at his watch again. "I really do have to run. Thank you for bringing these. We'll be in touch if the handwriting analysis yields anything useful." The meeting was over almost as soon as it had begun. They left the station together, Brennan hurrying off to his car, while Emma and David walked more slowly to theirs. The late afternoon sun was starting to slant golden across the parking lot. The drive back home was quiet at first, both Emma and David processing Detective Brennan's suggestion. It was David who broke the silence as they turned onto their street. "What do you think about moving her things back home?" David asked as they settled back into the Taurus. Emma fastened her seatbelt thoughtfully. Maybe he has a point. It has been 3 years. "I know," he said, his hand steady on the steering wheel. "And the detective was right about practicality. It's important in police work, having quick access to evidence and belongings." Emma turned to look at him, studying his profile. "You think we should move her things back?" "Ria's belongings should be in our house, not Ryan's." David continued, warming to the subject. "And think about it. What if Ryan needs the space one day? He's been storing our daughter's things for 3 years. That's a lot to ask of anyone, even family. He's never complained." Emma said softly, "No, but that's Ryan. He'd never complain." David slowed as they approached their driveway. "And it has been 3 years. I know it still hurts. God knows it hurts every day. But would you agree the wound isn't as raw as before?" Emma thought for a long moment, her fingers unconsciously playing with the hem of her blouse. "When I saw her Hello Kitty bowl today, I could feel her, like her soul was right there with me." She took a shaky breath. "Maybe you're right. Her soul should be at home with us. That's the right thing to do." David reached over and squeezed her hand as he parked the car. "Our attic and basement are full of Mom's old stuff and some of Ryan's things. We'll need to talk to them about rearranging." They noticed Ryan's blue Honda Civic was still in the driveway. Inside, They found Lucille drying dishes while Ryan wiped down the dining room table. "How did it go?" "At the police station?" Lucille asked. "Quick," Emma said. Detective Brennan was in a rush, but he took all the materials. She glanced at David, who picked up the thread. "He made a suggestion, actually, about Ria's belongings. He thinks we should move everything back here to our house for practical reasons, in case they need quick access to something." Lucille considered this, her weathered hands folding the dish towel precisely. "Well, I suppose it doesn't matter where her things are stored. If you want them back, it's certainly not a problem." But Ryan's reaction was immediate and sharp. "We're family," he said, his voice rising slightly. "Why would they say that? The police should mind their own job, not get their heads into people's storage arrangements." Emma was taken aback by his vehemence. "Ryan, I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to be upset." "I'm not upset," Ryan interrupted, though his flushed face suggested otherwise. "I'm just shocked. In all my years, I've never heard of police speaking like that. It's getting personal. They haven't found a single real clue in 3 years, and now they're worried about storage logistics." He shook his head disgustedly. "The private investigator we hired has done more than the entire police department." David moved closer to his brother. "I agree. The police have been frustratingly slow, but Emma and I have been talking, and we think we're ready to have Ria's belongings back home." "Exactly," Emma added gently. "We hired the investigator because there are new tips, new possibilities. What if we find Ria and she comes home to see none of her things here? She'd be heartbroken." Lucille nodded sagely. "She has a point, Ryan." Ryan's shoulders sagged, the fight going out of him as quickly as it had come. "You're right. That makes much more sense than the police's excuse." He ran a hand through his hair. "Sorry for getting emotional. I'm just so fed up with their slow work." "We understand," Emma said, touching his arm. "We know how much you care about Ria." "We all feel the same about the police's progress," David added. "But listen, we've both taken the day off work. Why don't we tackle this together? Move Ria's things back today." Ryan straightened. "If you say so, you clean up here, and I'll head home to get those boxes ready. We'll be more productive that way." After Ryan left, the 3 of them worked systematically through Emma and David's house. It took several hours to clear the attic space, moving Ryan's old camping equipment and college textbooks to the garage, and relocating Lucille's collection of vintage electronics, old furniture, and kitchen supplies down to the basement. By late afternoon, Emma and David drove to Ryan's house while Lucille stayed behind to rest. The summer light slanted through the trees as they pulled into Ryan's driveway. "I'll start in the basement," David said, already planning the logistics. "Double-check what's down there and start moving boxes." "I'll check the attic," Emma offered. They split up. Emma climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, finding the door already open. Ryan was emerging from the middle storage area, a large box in his arms. "Perfect timing," he said, slightly out of breath. "I'm going to carry this to your car." While he was gone, Emma surveyed the storage space. It was completely empty now. Her eyes were drawn to another door at the far end, the one that led to the upper attic space that had been converted into Ria's playroom. She should check it, she thought, just in case some of Ria's things had been stored there too. The door was locked. Emma remembered she still had Ryan's keys in her pocket. Fishing them out, she found one clearly labeled Playroom in Ryan's neat handwriting. The lock turned easily, but the door stuck slightly, swollen with humidity. When it finally opened, a wave of musty air escaped, carrying the smell of a space too long closed up. Emma's heart clenched as she took in the faded decorations on the walls. This had been Ria's special place at Uncle Ryan's house, where she'd spend hours during Emma's late work nights or when she and David had needed a date night. How sad that she'd almost forgotten about this room, Emma thought. Another sign that bringing Ria's things home was the right decision. She noticed a few boxes stacked in one corner and stepped into the room to investigate. That's when she saw it, the other Hello Kitty bowl, the twin to the one she'd found in the basement. But this one wasn't empty. Emma's steps faltered as she drew closer. She gagged at an offensive smell in the room. The bowl contained something covered in thick, fuzzy mold green, gray, and black, so completely covered that she couldn't tell what food had originally been in there. Cereal, maybe, or something else. The mold had consumed everything, creating its own ecosystem in the pink plastic bowl. Curious despite her revulsion, Emma picked up the bowl carefully, intending to take it out of the room. She met Ryan on the landing, and his eyes immediately fixed on the bowl in her hands. "What's that?" he asked, his nose wrinkling. "Smells terrible." "I found this in the playroom," Emma explained. "I was checking for any of Ria's belongings and saw it on the floor." "Is this from before Ria disappeared?" Ryan's face went through several expressions in quick succession. "Yes, no, it was—" He frowned, seeming to search for words. "Some friends came over about 8 months ago, or was it last year, for a prayer gathering. Their kids played in the playroom so they wouldn't disturb the fellowship. One of them must have brought food up there, and I forgot to clean it." He paused, thinking, "Yeah, that's right, last year." "Okay," Emma said slowly, "but they were using Ria's bowl. I thought I stored all her bowls in the boxes in the basement." The memory from earlier suddenly clicked. "Actually, that reminds me. That box in the basement was already open when I found it this morning, with the other Hello Kitty bowl sitting on top." "Has it always been open?" Ryan nodded quickly. "It's always been open. I took one of the Hello Kitty bowls as a keepsake. Kept it in my kitchen to remember Ria. Those kids must have seen it and used it." His face fell. "I'm so sorry about that." "It's not a big problem," Emma assured him, though her heart hurt at seeing Ria's special bowl in such a state. "This smells terrible though. I'll clean it up." She headed downstairs to the kitchen, Ryan following. At the trash can, she tried to tip the moldy contents into the garbage, but emotion overwhelmed her: grief, frustration, the unfairness of it all. Her hands shook, and suddenly the moldy mass slipped, splattering across her shirt and jeans. Oh! She felt stupid and horrible all at once. The smell was overwhelming, a mix of decay and must that made her eyes water. She grabbed paper towels frantically, trying to clean the floor first, then attacking the stains on her clothes, but the smell seemed to have permeated the fabric instantly. At the sink, she tried washing the spots, but the water just spread the mess, creating larger wet areas on her clothes. Frustrated tears spilled down her cheeks as she wrung excess water from her shirt. She turned her attention to the bowl, running hot water over it, but the fungal growth had penetrated deep into the plastic. No amount of scrubbing could remove the dark stains and discoloration. The bowl itself looked slightly warped, the plastic brittle with age or heat or the chemistry of decay. Emma couldn't bring herself to throw it away. It was still Ria's bowl, after all, but it was ruined. She washed it as best she could and left it in the dish drainer, unsure what else to do. David found her there, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Hey," he said gently. "Are you okay? Is this about moving her things? We don't have to." "I'm not crying because of the moving," Emma said, gesturing helplessly at herself. David came closer and immediately recoiled at the smell. "What happened?" She pointed to the bowl in the drainer. "I found Ria's other bowl in the playroom with moldy food. I tried to clean it and spilled it all over myself. Her favorite bowl is ruined. It's not about my clothes." David pulled her into a careful hug, trying to avoid the worst of the mess. "It's okay, it's just a bowl." But they both knew it wasn't just a bowl. Ryan appeared in the doorway, carrying another box. "What's going on?" "Emma spilled the moldy food on herself," David explained. Ryan set down his box. Immediately, concern replacing his earlier efficiency. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." He gestured toward the hallway. You can shower here. Use my bathroom. I still have some clothes from my ex-girlfriend that should fit you. No, Emma protested. I'll clean up at home. We live so close. But even as she spoke, the smell seemed to intensify, and David gently suggested, maybe you should. Clean up here, Em. It's no big deal, Ryan insisted. Use the shower in my bedroom. The guest bathroom shower is broken. Emma shook her head. I don't want to make your shower smell like this. I'll use the one in the basement. I know you have one down there. Ryan hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Okay, there's a cabinet in the basement where I keep some of my ex's things. I'll help you find what you need. They headed downstairs to the basement together, Ryan leading the way. The afternoon light barely penetrated the small windows. Near the ceiling, casting the space in dim shadows, Ryan moved efficiently to a storage cabinet against the far wall, pulling out a folded towel and sorting through hangers of clothing. Here, he said, selecting a pair of jeans and a simple cotton t-shirt. These should fit. Sarah was about your size. He paused, a flicker of something crossing his face at the mention of his ex-girlfriend's name. The hot water. Down here is limited, so don't take too long. The heater's old. Thank you, Ryan, really. Emma accepted the clothes gratefully, trying not to breathe too deeply. The smell from her stained clothing was making her nauseous. No problem. I'll go help David with the boxes. If you need anything else, just take it. He gestured vaguely at the cabinet. Towels are on the middle shelf. After Ryan's footsteps faded up the stairs, Emma made her way to the basement bathroom. It was basic but clean. A small shower stall, toilet, and pedestal sink. She locked the door and quickly stripped off her contaminated clothes, rolling them into a tight ball and setting them in the corner. The hot water felt wonderful despite being slightly lukewarm, washing away not just the physical remnants of the mold, but some of the emotional weight of the day. As she cleaned herself, she heard noises like someone moving around in the basement. Footsteps maybe, or the sound of objects being shifted. Ryan, she called out, but there was no response. She quickly rinsed and turned off the water. With a towel wrapped around her, she cracked open the bathroom door and peered out. The basement was empty, boxes still stacked where they'd been before. No sign of Ryan or anyone else. Strange, she thought, closing the door again. As she dried off and dressed in the borrowed clothes, she heard the noises again. Perhaps it was just the neighbors, she thought. Sound could travel oddly in basements, maybe through shared walls or ventilation systems. Emma gathered her soiled clothes, wrapping them in a plastic bag she found under the sink. She'd washed them properly at home. Stepping out of the bathroom, she was about to head upstairs when a light suddenly clicked on in the far corner of the basement. An automatic timer on something, she realized. Curious, she walked toward the light source. Tucked into the deepest corner of the basement, almost hidden behind some storage shelves, was a large aquarium. The light illuminated the water, revealing a fully established tank with live plants, driftwood, and colorful fish swimming lazily. A small stool and side table were positioned nearby, creating a little viewing area, clearly a spot where someone spent time regularly. Emma's breath caught. She remembered how much Rhea had loved fish. She'd begged to visit the pet store just to watch them, pressing her little nose against the glass tanks. And here, Ryan had all of Rhea's favorites. Bright orange goldfish, the elegant angelfish with their flowing fins, the tiny neon tetras that moved in synchronized schools. How had she never known Ryan kept fish? In all the times they'd been to his house, he'd never mentioned this aquarium, never invited them to see it. It seemed like something he would have shared, especially knowing Rhea's love for aquatic life. As she admired the setup, movement caught her eye. A fish floated near the surface, clearly dead. Then she spotted another caught in the plants. She found a net hanging on the side of the tank and carefully scooped out the first dead fish. As she searched for others, her movements disturbed the substrate. A piece of driftwood shifted and toppled, and from its hollow center, something metallic tumbled out into the gravel. A key? Emma frowned, setting the net aside. Why would there be a key hidden inside the aquarium decoration? Using the net, she carefully fished it out along with 2 more dead fish she'd spotted. In the bathroom, she flushed the dead fish and rinsed the key under clean water. It was a simple brass key, nothing distinctive about it except for its hiding place. She looked around the basement, checking the storage cabinets, the old filing cabinet in the corner, even the electrical panel, but couldn't find any lock that matched. Maybe it had fallen from Ryan's pocket while he was maintaining the tank. But that didn't explain why it was inside the driftwood. And who hides a key in an aquarium? Emma climbed the stairs, the key clutched in her palm. She should leave it in Ryan's room where he'd easily find it. She knocked on his bedroom. Door out of courtesy. Silence. He must be at their house with David, moving boxes. She hesitated before turning the handle. Ryan's room was meticulously organized as always. She stepped inside, intending to leave the key on the nearest surface, the desk by the window. That's when she saw them, 3 framed photographs. On the dresser that she'd never noticed before. Or had they always been there, and she'd never really looked? But no, these were different. These were photos of Ryan with Rhea, but something was off. Emma picked up the nearest frame with trembling hands. It was definitely Rhea. She'd know her daughter anywhere. But this Rhea looked older than the 7-year-old who disappeared. Her face had lost some of its baby roundness. Her hair was longer, styled differently. She was wearing clothes Emma didn't recognize, in a room Emma had never seen. Her heart began to pound as she examined the photo more closely. Children change so much in just a few years. The girl in this photo could easily be 9 or 10. The same age Rhea would be now. The room seemed to tilt. Emma grabbed the edge of the dresser to steady herself. This couldn't be real. This couldn't mean what she thought it meant. With shaking fingers, she slipped the photograph out of its frame. She had to be sure. She had to show someone. The key suddenly, the hidden key took on new significance. Was it connected to Rhea? Why else would it be hidden? Emma stumbled. Out of Ryan's room, photograph and key clutched in her hands. In the kitchen, she grabbed the phone with fingers that barely worked, dialing the police station from memory. Castle Rock Police Department. This is Emma Carlisle. I need to speak to Detective Brennan immediately. It's about my daughter's case. 1 moment, please. The hold music seemed to last forever. Finally, Mrs. Carlisle, this is Detective Mills. Brennan is out, but I'm familiar with your case. What's happening? The words tumbled out in a rush. I'm at my brother-in-law's house, Ryan Carlisle. I found a photograph of my daughter looking older than when she disappeared, and a key hidden in his fish tank, and the moldy bowl in the playroom. I think something's wrong. I think. She couldn't say it. Where are you exactly? Is Ryan there with you? I'm in his kitchen. He's at my house with my husband, moving boxes. Okay, Mrs. Carlisle, I need you to stay calm. Don't confront Ryan about what you found. We're sending units to both addresses now. Is there anyone else with you? No, I'm alone. Can you leave the house safely? Yes, Good. I'm also going to contact your private investigator. Do not approach Ryan or tell him what you found. Do you understand? Yes. Emma whispered. We'll be there in minutes. You did the right thing calling us. Emma hung up, her whole body shaking. She looked at the photograph again, her daughter's face smiling back at her from some unknown time and place. How was this possible? Had Ryan known where Rhea was all along? After the phone call, Emma walked back to her house on unsteady legs. The photograph and key felt like they were burning holes in her pocket. She paused at her front door, taking deep breaths to compose herself. Inside, she could hear David and Ryan's voices, casual and relaxed. She entered to find them maneuvering a large box through the living room. David looked up with a smile. "Hey, there you are, looking much fresher." Emma forced a smile in return, but her eyes were locked on Ryan, studying his every movement. How could he look so relaxed, so casual? He hefted his end of the box with practiced ease, directing David to angle it toward the stairs. Everything about him seemed normal. "Emma, I'm really sorry again about the bowl," Ryan said, setting down his end of the box and gesturing toward the kitchen counter where the ruined Hello Kitty bowl sat. "I brought it over here. Figured you should decide what to do with it." She stared at him, searching his expression for any sign of deception, any crack in the facade. But his face showed only genuine concern and regret. He was flawless in his performance as the supportive family member. "Emma," Ryan's voice cut through her thoughts. "Did you hear me?" "Sorry," she stammered. "I was just thinking about something." "I was asking about retaping this box," Ryan repeated patiently, pointing to one of Ria's boxes. "Should we seal it back up or leave it open for now?" "No need," Emma said, her voice coming out strained. She cleared her throat and decided to push just a little. "Ryan, is there something you want to tell us about that box? Were you the one who opened it? And why?" Ryan's expression shifted to confusion. "I didn't open it. It was already open when we started moving things today. I told you. You didn't?" "But I taped everything," David interjected, looking between them with growing concern. "Every single box, I remember." Emma studied Ryan's face intently. "Is there something you haven't told us?" Ryan's confusion morphed into defensive irritation. He laughed, but it was sharp, sarcastic. "I don't understand what you mean. Are you all right, Emma? You're acting strange." That's when they heard it. The wail of police sirens growing louder, clearly heading their way. Multiple sirens from different directions. David straightened up, alarmed. "What's going on?" Ryan's face had gone pale, his eyes darting toward the windows. Lucille appeared from the kitchen, dish towel still in hand. "What's happening?" "I hear police." Emma couldn't hold back any longer. She pulled out the key and photograph, holding them up with shaking hands. "I think Ryan has something to explain to us." David stepped closer, taking the photograph. His face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, shock. This is Ria, but she looks older." Lucille finished, moving to look over David's shoulder. "She looks older." David fumbled for his wallet, pulling out the worn photograph he always carried. Ria resplendent in her blue pageant dress with her crown and princess sash across her shoulder. He held it next to the new photo, and the difference was undeniable. The girl in Ryan's photograph was the same child, but aged by what could only be years. Lucille turned to Ryan, her voice trembling. "When did you take this, son?" "Where is this?" "Yeah, brother." David's voice was dangerously quiet. "I have the same questions as Mom." Ryan stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. The sirens were right outside now, blue and red lights flashing through the windows. Through the open front door, they could see police cars pulling up, followed immediately by a familiar sedan, the private investigator's car. Officers approached the door, knocking on the frame even though it was open. "Police, we're looking for Ryan Carlisle." Ryan seemed to make a decision in that split second. His body tensed, and suddenly he was moving, sprinting toward the back of the house. "He's heading for the back door," Emma shouted. The officers immediately gave chase, some running through the house while others stationed outside ran around the perimeter. Through the windows they could see Ryan burst out the back door, only to be met by more officers. He tried to dodge, but there were too many. Within moments they had him on the ground. David stood with his hands gripping his hair, pulling it back in shock and frustration. "What the hell, Ryan? What did you do?" Lucille broke down completely, sobs racking her elderly frame. Emma moved to support her, even as her own legs threatened to give out. She guided Lucille to the couch, both of them shaking. Frank Morrison, the private investigator, entered the house with careful steps, taking in the scene. He approached Emma with professional calm. "Mrs. Carlyle, may I see the key? Where exactly did you find it?" With trembling hands, Emma gave him the key and explained about the fish tank, the hidden compartment in the driftwood. Morrison examined it carefully, turning it over in his fingers. Detective Mills entered next, his face grave. "Mrs. Carlyle, we need you to show us this fish tank. Can you take us there?" David looked up from where he was comforting his mother. "I'll stay here with Mom. He didn't need to finish." Lucille was clearly in shock, rocking slightly, tears streaming down her face. Emma nodded and led Morrison and Detective Mills back to Ryan's house. The walk felt surreal now, knowing what she knew, suspecting what she suspected. She took them directly to the basement, down the familiar stairs to where the aquarium sat in its corner. "This is it," she said, pointing to the tank with its still swimming fish, oblivious to the drama unfolding around them. The key was inside that piece of driftwood. Detective Mills and Morrison began a methodical search of the area. They checked the aquarium cabinet beneath the tank, opened every drawer and door. They examined the nearby shelves, the storage cabinets, even began knocking on the walls at various points, listening for any hollow sounds that might indicate hidden spaces. "You said you showered down here?" Morrison asked, noticing the damp spots on the floor. "Yes, after I spilled the moldy food on myself," Emma confirmed. Then she remembered. "Oh, and while I was in the shower, I heard noises like someone moving around in the basement, but when I looked, no one was here." The two men exchanged glances. They checked the bathroom thoroughly, but found nothing unusual. However, as Morrison walked back out, he stopped suddenly, staring at the floor. "Look at this," he said to Detective Mills. "The watermarks from our shoes. See how they're pooling differently here." They all looked down. Where they had walked, their damp footprints were already fading on most of the floor. But in one section, the water seemed to linger, settling into almost imperceptible grooves. Mills knelt down, running his fingers along the floor. "There's a seam here." He looked up at Morrison. "This section comes up." Working together, they found the edges and lifted what turned out to be a cleverly disguised trapdoor. Beneath was a metal door with a sturdy lock. Mills tried the key Emma had found. It turned smoothly. "Recently oiled," Morrison noted as they slid the heavy metal door open. What lay beneath was a narrow crawl space, barely wide enough for an adult to move through on hands and knees. Mills grabbed his flashlight and directed the beam down the tunnel. "I'll check it out," he said, lowering himself into the space. Emma watched, her heart pounding, as the detective disappeared into the darkness. She could hear him moving, his progress slow in the confined space. After what felt like an eternity, his voice echoed back. "There's another door down here. This one has a combination lock. Looks like 6 digits. We're going to need that." "Code." Mills crawled back out, dirt on his uniform. He immediately got on his radio. "This is Mills. Do we have Ryan Carlyle in custody? We need a passcode for a locked door in his basement." 6-digit combination, the radio crackled. "Suspect is secured, but refusing to cooperate. He's not talking." Mills cursed under his breath. "Then we'll have to break in." He looked at Morrison. "I'm calling in the tactical team. They have tools for this." While waiting for the expert rescue team to arrive, Emma, Detective Mills, and Morrison made their way back outside. The scene in front of the house was controlled chaos. Police cars with lights still flashing, yellow tape being strung up, and curious neighbors gathering at the periphery. Ryan was there, handcuffed and seated in the back of a patrol car, his head down. David stood nearby with Lucille, who was leaning heavily on her son, looking years older than she had that morning. Emma hurried to them. "They found a secret tunnel in the basement," she told David, her voice barely above a whisper. "Behind a hidden panel in the floor, there's another locked door down there with a combination lock." David's face went white. A secret tunnel in Ryan's basement? Detective Mills approached Ryan's patrol car, leaning down to the window. "Mr. Carlyle, we need that combination, 6 digits. This doesn't have to be harder than it needs to be." Ryan kept his head down, saying nothing. Morrison touched Emma's elbow gently. "Mrs. Carlyle, can you come with me for a moment? I need your help." She followed him a few steps away from the crowd. Morrison pulled out a small notebook. "We need to think about meaningful numbers. 6 digits. Could be dates. Could be a number that has significance to Ryan or to Rhea. Birthdays, anniversaries, anything you can think of." Emma listed everything she could think of, but there were so many possibilities. It could be any random number. "How can we possibly?" Her eyes fell on one of the open boxes near David's feet. The ruined Hello Kitty bowl sat on top, the one Ryan had brought over from his house. Even moldy and stained, it was still Rhea's beloved bowl. Almost in a trance, Emma walked over and picked it up. She ran her fingers over the familiar shape, searching for comfort, anything to calm her frayed nerves. As she rubbed the surface, she felt the raised lettering on the bottom. Tilting it slightly, she could just make out the molded product. Number 384,729. A thought struck her with sudden clarity. If Ryan had kept Rhea all this time, Rhea would have wanted her special bowl. That's why that box had been opened, not for a keepsake, but because Rhea needed it. She was still using it. Double quotes, Mr. Morrison, she called out, her voice urgent. "I think we have the code." She showed him the bowl's bottom. 384,729. It's the product number. Rhea was attached to this bowl. Wouldn't eat without it. If Ryan has had her all this time. Morrison's eyes lit up with understanding. That could be it. We need to try it. They quickly told Detective Mills, who looked skeptical but nodded. It's worth a shot. This time, David insisted on coming with them, and Lucille, despite her shocked state, wouldn't be left behind. The group made their way back to Ryan's house and down to the basement. The trap door still gaped open, the narrow tunnel visible below. "I'll go," Morrison said, already lowering himself into the crawl space. "If it works, I'll let you know." They watched as he disappeared into the crawl tunnel, his progress marked by the scraping sounds of movement in the confined space. Then, faintly but unmistakably, they heard Morrison's voice. It worked. The door's open. But what came next made Emma's knees buckle. A young girl's voice, muffled by distance but clear enough. "Uncle Ryan, can I visit the playroom?" "Today?" Morrison's head appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. His face was carefully controlled as he looked at Emma and David. "I think you two should go in. She'd be scared if she sees a stranger. Your daughter is asking for Ryan." Lucille gripped Emma's hand. "Go," she whispered. "I'll be all right. Go get our girl." Emma dropped to her knees at the tunnel entrance, her heart hammering. She crawled into the darkness, David right behind her. The tunnel was claustrophobic. Barely wide enough for her shoulders, the concrete cold against her palms, but she pushed forward. Driven by the knowledge that her daughter was just ahead, the crawl space gradually widened and grew, taller until they could almost stand, hunched over. Ahead was another door, this one standing open thanks to Morrison. Emma knocked gently on the doorframe. Rhea, sweetie." A figure appeared in the doorway, a girl of about 10 with blonde hair that had darkened slightly with age, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. It was Rhea, but not the 7-year-old who had vanished. This was Rhea, aged by 3 years of captivity. The girl's expression shifted from curiosity to shock to disbelief. "No," she whispered, backing away. "This is a dream, just a bad dream." I'll wake up soon. She rubbed her eyes frantically. Rhea, baby, you're not dreaming, David said, his voice breaking. We're really here. No, Rhea shook her head violently. Mom and Dad died. Uncle Ryan told me. You died in a car accident. That's why I had to stay here, because there was no one else to take care of me, and bad people wanted to take me. Emma felt her heart shatter. She moved slowly into the room, a small but furnished space with a bed, a desk, books, toys, even a small TV with a VCR prison made comfortable. We're not dead, sweetheart, Emma said, extending her hand. Carefully, as if approaching a frightened animal. We've been looking for you all this time. For 3 years, we've never stopped looking. Rhea stared at Emma's outstretched hand, tears starting to stream down her face. Tentatively, as if afraid the illusion would shatter, she reached out and touched Emma's fingers. The moment their skin made contact, Emma closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the warm, solid reality of her daughter's touch. Rhea let out a sob and flew into her arms. Mommy, is it really you? It's me, baby. It's really me. David wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood there, crying, a family reunited in the most horrible of circumstances. After several minutes, David gently pulled back. Rhea, honey, Grandma Lucille is upstairs, and some people want to help you to make sure you're okay. Grandma? Rhea looked confused. Help me? Save me from what? Emma and David exchanged painful glances. How did you explain this to a child? Sweetheart, Emma said carefully. Uncle Ryan, he shouldn't have kept you here. He told you lies about us being dead. We never died. We've been searching for you everywhere. But Uncle Ryan is kind, Rhea protested. He takes care of me. He brings me food and books and toys. He comes every evening after work to keep me company. Good and kind people don't keep other people locked in rooms, Emma said gently. They don't lie about parents being dead. Rhea's face crumpled as the truth began to sink in. He said he was protecting me. He said because I won the beauty pageant, bad people wanted to get me, to take me and sell me. He let me play in the playroom once, a long time ago. But when I looked out the window and asked questions about where the bad people were, he brought me back down here. We never went to the playroom again. Emma's heart clenched. So the moldy cereal bowl in the playroom hadn't been from some friend's child. It had been Rhea's, from that one visit before Ryan had decided even the attic wasn't secure. Enough. Do you still use your Hello Kitty bowl? Emma asked softly. Rhea's eyes widened. Yes, but I lost one. Uncle Ryan couldn't find it anywhere. I know where it is, Emma said. But for now, we need to get you out of here. There are doctors who want to check that you're healthy and police who need to talk to all of us. But I'll be with you every step, okay? I'm never letting you out of my sight again. Rhea nodded, clinging to Emma's hand as they made their way to the door. The journey back through the crawl space was awkward with 3 people, but they managed it, Rhea between her parents, protected on both sides. When they emerged into the TV basement, a small crowd of authorities and medical personnel burst into spontaneous applause, but they quickly shifted to professional mode, giving the family a moment while preparing for what came next. Lucille rushed forward, tears streaming down her face as she gathered Rhea into her arms. My precious girl, my precious, precious girl. She kissed Rhea's face over and over. A medical team approached respectfully. A female paramedic knelt down to Rhea's level. Hi Rhea, I'm Casey. We have an ambulance outside, and I'd like to check you over to make sure you're healthy. Your mom can come with you. Is that okay? Rhea nodded, still gripping Emma's hand as they walked up the basement stairs and out of the house. Emma kept her promise, staying right beside her daughter. The neighborhood was now full of emergency vehicles and onlookers. Neighbors stood in clusters, whispering and pointing. Ryan was nowhere to be seen. In the ambulance, the medical team worked gently but thoroughly. They asked Rhea if she had any pain anywhere in her body. When they delicately asked about any inappropriate touching or pain in private areas, Rhea shook her head. "Uncle Ryan never touched me like that," she said. "He never even hugged me much." Emma nearly collapsed with relief. At least that horror had been spared. The paramedics confirmed that, aside from signs of malnutrition, she was underweight and showed vitamin deficiencies consistent with a limited diet. Rhea appeared physically unharmed. They recommended immediate follow-up with a pediatrician for complete blood work and a full examination, but there was no emergency requiring hospitalization. Detective Mills approached the ambulance, Morrison beside him. David and Lucille had caught up, forming a protective cluster around Rhea. "Mr. Morrison," David said, his voice thick with emotion, "we can't thank you enough." The private investigator shook his head. "I'm just glad she's safe. That's all that matters." He turned to Mills. "I'll see you at the station for the formal statement." Mills nodded, then addressed the family. "I know this is overwhelming, but since Rhea doesn't need emergency care, I'd like to take everyone's statements at the station. There will be someone from Child Protective Services there to talk with Rhea. But," he added quickly, seeing Emma's alarm, "it's just procedure. They need to document everything properly." He looked at Rhea with kind eyes. "You're very brave, Rhea. There are people at the station who will want to talk to you about your time with your uncle, but your parents will be nearby." Rhea nodded, still processing everything that had happened. They all climbed into police vehicles, not as suspects, but as witnesses to a crime that had shattered their family for 3 years. As they pulled away from Ryan's house, Emma held Rhea close, still hardly believing she was real. At the Castle Rock Police Station, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the Carlyle family was led through familiar corridors to a conference room. Detective Mills excused himself briefly, returning with a manila file folder and a colleague. "This is Detective Vera Chun," Mills introduced. "She's been leading the interrogation with Ryan Carlyle." Chun nodded grimly. "He's opened up considerably in the last hour, though we believe he's still withholding some details." She placed the file on the table. "Mrs. Carlyle, we'll need your complete statement about today's discoveries, but first, I think you should know what Ryan has confessed to." Emma sat forward, David's hand finding hers under the table. In an adjacent room, they could see through the window that Rhea was with a CPS worker and Lucille, coloring at a small table while they waited. "Please," Emma said, "tell us everything." Chun opened the file. "Ryan has admitted to taking Rhea after the beauty pageant 3 years ago. He insists he didn't abduct her, his words, but that she came with him willingly." Emma let out a bitter laugh. "Willingly? She was 7 years old." "I understand your anger," Chun said carefully. "Let me explain what he told us. After Rhea won the pageant that day, the children were left unsupervised backstage while parents mingled in the main area. Ryan had been volunteering unofficially at the event, running errands, helping staff, generally making himself useful. This gave him access to restricted areas without raising suspicion. Mills picked up the thread. Rhea trusted her uncle completely. When Ryan told her he had a surprise gift for her in the car, she went with him without question. The back exit he used had no security cameras and wasn't guarded. Staff members who saw them leave together thought nothing of it. Everyone knew about their close relationship. The whole school knew, the teachers, the neighbors, Chun added. Ryan had cultivated this image of the devoted uncle for years. No one questioned seeing them together. Emma felt sick. All those times she'd been grateful for Ryan's help, his willingness to babysit, to pick Rhea up from school. It had all been preparation for this moment. "Did he use his own car?" Emma asked, remembering the initial investigation. Chun shook her head. "He claims he did, but we don't believe him. In our original investigation 3 years ago, we pulled the venue's vehicle log records. Ryan's Honda Civic never appears in the log. We assumed at the time he'd carpooled or taken a cab, but now we suspect he used a rental or borrowed vehicle. We're pulling rental records from that time period. He planned it, David sighed, his voice hollow. This wasn't some impulse. He planned to take our daughter. The secret chamber confirms that. Mills agreed. Mrs. Carlyle, were you aware of any major renovations to Ryan's house? Emma thought back. Yes, about 5 years ago. But he never mentioned any secret room or basement expansion. He said he was converting the upper attic into a playroom for when Rhea visited and using the middle section for storage. That's why his attic has that unusual layout with 2 separate staircases and doors, Chun made notes. That timeline fits. He would have had 2 years to prepare the hidden chamber before taking Rhea. The construction was professional soundproofing, ventilation, plumbing for the small bathroom we found. This took significant planning and resources, but why? Emma's voice cracked. What possible reason could he have? The medical team said there were no signs of sexual abuse. What did he want with her? Chun and Mills exchanged glances. From our interrogation, it appears Ryan viewed Rhea as what we might call a trophy child. She'd won the beauty pageant, received all that attention and admiration. Ryan seems to have wanted to preserve that, to keep her perfection for himself alone. There's more, Mills added reluctantly. When he was questioned about past relationships, he mentioned an abusive ex-girlfriend several times. His view of adult women appears to be severely distorted. We believe he saw Rhea as pure, untainted by the adult world. Our forensic psychologist will evaluate him tomorrow for a complete profile. Emma put her head in her hands. There were signs. There must have been signs we missed. We just thought he was being a good uncle. The gifts, the special attention, always volunteering to babysit. You couldn't have known, Chun said firmly. Ryan presented himself as the perfect family member. He participated in searches, comforted you in your grief, all while knowing exactly where Rhea was. That level of deception isn't something normal people can anticipate. He told her we were dead, David said suddenly. That's what she said. He told our daughter we died in a car accident, Chun nodded. It was the only way to keep her from trying to escape or contact you. He created a fiction where he was her protector, keeping her safe from bad people who wanted to harm her. Because of her beauty pageant win. A knock on the door interrupted them. The CPS worker, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, entered with Rhea and Lucille. I'm sorry to interrupt, Patricia said, but Rhea is asking for her parents. Emma immediately stood and gathered Rhea into her arms. The little girl, not so little anymore, buried her face in Emma's shoulder. Patricia addressed the detectives. I've completed my initial assessment. Given the circumstances and the family's cooperation, I see no reason for any emergency intervention. However, Rhea will need immediate medical attention and ongoing psychological support. We understand, David said quickly. Whatever she needs, Detective Mills stood. We have what we need for now. We'll need follow-up interviews with everyone, including Rhea, when she's ready. But that can wait. He looked at the family with sympathy. You've been through enough today. Let us provide you with an escort home. As they gathered their things, Emma asked one final question. Will we have to see him at trial? Eventually, Chen said honestly, but not today. Today you take your daughter home. They were led to a police cruiser, the same detective who'd responded to Emma's call, volunteering to drive them. As they settled into the car, Rhea sandwiched protectively between her parents, Lucille in the front seat. The weight of the day began to settle over them. All this time, David said quietly as they drove through the familiar streets. She was right there, a 10-minute walk from our house. In the basement, Emma added, still struggling to process it. We had dinner at Ryan's house. We celebrated holidays there, and Rhea was right below us. Lucille turned from the front seat, tears still tracking down her weathered face. I should have known. A mother should know when her son. She couldn't finish. No, Mom, David said firmly. This isn't your fault. Ryan fooled all of us. Rhea had been quiet throughout the ride, but now she spoke up in a small voice. Are you mad at me for going with Uncle Ryan? Emma pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. Never, never, sweetheart. You were little. You trusted him because we all trusted him. None of this is your fault. What happens now? Rhea asked. Emma met David's eyes over their daughter's head. There would be so much to deal with. Medical appointments, therapy, legal proceedings, helping Rhea readjust to a world she'd been told was dangerous. 3 years of lies to untangle. 3 years of captivity to heal from. But for now, in this moment, they were together. Now, Emma said softly, we go home. Your real home with your real family who loves you and never stopped looking for you. And my room? Rhea asked tentatively. Is my room still there? Everything's still there, David assured her. As the police car turned onto their street, the late afternoon sun painted everything golden. The same trees, the same houses, the same driveways where Rhea had ridden her bike. All of it unchanged, except for the 3 years that had passed and the girl who had lived beneath it all, hidden in plain sight. If this story touched your heart, don't let it fade into silence. Every missing person is more than a name. They're a life, a memory, a voice that still matters. If you believe stories like this should never be forgotten, please like, share, and subscribe to help keep their memory alive. Together, we honor the lost. Together, we give silence a voice. Because remembering isn't just love, it's justice.